GCP Life would like to acknowledge Queen Elizabeth II and the lifetime of work that she has given to Australia and the Commonwealth. Welcome to GCP Life, episode number 23 for the 16th of September 2022. GCP Life is sponsored by Kasna. At Kasna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. And I'm your host, Stephen Bancroft. And on today's show, Google's in serious trouble. We take a look at what's new in vSphere 8. Why is the Australian government meddling with our clouds? We have plenty of security-related news. And what is going on with Ethereum. But before we get to any of that, I'll introduce the co-host of the show, Dave Wall. How are you going, Dave?
I'm doing awesome, mate. I'm very, very excited for this podcast today. We've got a bumper show.
It is a bumper show. That's right, yeah. It always starts out, at the beginning of the fortnight, like after the last show. There's always a bit of a lull, maybe a day or two, and then we get together on the Tuesday and we go, we've got to put in the show. We don't have a lot.
No.
And then as it
you
goes
have to have
on,
faith.
Yes, it just ends up being more and more and more and more, and then we're discluding articles after a little while.
Yeah. Also helpful that there's a few conferences and announcements, like big announcements that sort of happen, and get a nice glut.
There's quite a few things going on at the moment, but we'll get to all of that. But I just want to say at the top of the show, I sat my PCA exam on Monday.
Yay!
And I passed.
Yay!
Yeah, I tell you what.
Insert a little clapping.
Don't make me do it. I tell you what, I walked out of that exam and my mind was fried. I was just fried after that. It really was. It's a grueling 2 hours, and I used I cut it close to the wire and used quite a lot of the time just to go through the first round of questions. I probably had about, 7 or 8. I went back and reviewed. Didn't really change my answer on any of those, and then quickly went back and just reviewed the rest of them. I probably had, after doing all that, probably only 3 or 4 minutes left on the timer.
With the review, how often do you find that you ever actually go back and change an answer?
I have. Yeah, it has happened.
I find I will review things, especially things I'm not sure of, but usually by the time I come around, because I'm sort of hoping that maybe a further question will, unlodge a little bit of knowledge in my brain. Yep. But I come back to that thing, I'm like, nah, I still don't know. We'll just we'll go with that one.
Right. It's either a straight up guess. You go, I really don't know, and I'm just sort of guesstimating the best answer, or as you say, something will dislodge in your brain, and you go, hang on a minute, that's this, and then you really know it. So I can go either way, but I have changed answers. And
then you get to that. You submit.
Don't know if it helped. Don't know if it helped or not. I've never failed one, so must have
you get
done something.
That moment right at the end when you hit submit. And then the screen comes up and it's just in tiny little text. Pass.
That's a horrifying moment. It's just the worst feeling. Okay, please click submit. It's got the text that says you are submitting your exam. You will not be able to review any questions. That's bigger than the results.
Like, come on, guys. Just make it like size 14 text.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So not everyone in the room can read it. That'd be great. But I'll tell you what, there was a question on the exam that I'd not covered in my study, but it was something we covered on the show. So there you go. It was in relation to views on the table in BigQuery, how you can set permissions on columns and only let particular IAM principals see certain columns.
Which is relatively new.
And we talked about it on the show. Knew the answer because of that. So, I was really, really stoked to see that come on. Hang on a minute, it has to be this one. I remember discussing this.
Yeah, well, I was glad to hear that IoT Core was not covered in the exam.
Yeah, there really wasn't any IoT core questions, which is quite apt. Yeah, up to date there.
It's good considering you can't really study it anymore, so it's good that they're not asking questions.
But straight out of the gate, there was probably 10 or 12 case study questions. They put them all up front. The EHR Medical and Mount Kirk is where they really focused the questioning on.
I think it's good that the case studies for the PCA are available. Like anybody now can go, you can read them in advance. You know, you can have had a thought about them. You can have some ideas about, you know, what the sort of key requirements are going to be and challenges. It's good that doesn't just get dumped on you at the time.
Oh, yeah, that'd be difficult because some of the, you know, the case studies are written in a way that they would come from a layman, right? Or they'd come from someone that's got a business perspective. And you have to interpret that into what's actually going to transpire in terms of technical sense. And it's not immediately obvious.
No, and of course, like in the real world, if you got something that was a little bit nebulous, you could go back and ask follow-up questions.
Absolutely, you could, yeah.
You can't do that in the exam.
No. But yeah, look, you know, I felt I learned stuff during the process, and there was new stuff in there for me. So, you know, it was good. I felt happy with the process and came out a winner in the end. So I'm really happy with the result for me. That's
good. You got to get a bit more swag coming your way.
I got a bit more swag. I got a. Oh, by the way.
Oh.
There's a sticker.
Oh, nice.
And there's a cloud certified cloud security engineer messenger bag.
Oh, nice looking bag. I'm still waiting. I think my developer hoodie is on its way, and I got an email saying that my DevOps hoodie, they're not doing them anymore. So
no, I got the same one. So
I'm holding off. There was nothing there that I wanted, so I'll wait and see if they update the products.
Yes, exactly. I have exactly the same issue, so we'll see what happens. But you can make a donation as well. So, you know, once I've got all the swag, I think that's probably what I'll end up doing. So, Dave, what's you're the standing crypto guy on the show. What's going on? What is going on with
unfortunate position to be in? There's
in about 2 hours,
the lesser of two idiots.
The crypto world's going to explode. What's going on?
Yeah. So today, so hopefully by the time everyone hears this tomorrow, the merge will have happened. Hopefully successfully. But it's been something that's been a long time coming. This is the transition for Ethereum from proof of work, which is where people have graphics cards and miners and all the sort of infrastructure that goes hashing to keep the Ethereum network secure. And we're transitioning away from that to proof of stake, which you can't get me to explain particularly well. But the basically net result of it is anyone who has been mining, it goes in a couple of hours from now. You can't do it anymore. Me and quite a few other people I know have either shut their rigs down or they are transitioning across to whatever they think is going to be next. I think it's going to be kind of chaotic for a while. I'm not really backing any horse to fill that gap. I think it's going to be all over the place for a while because so much hash power was running Ethereum. Like the next closest crypto isn't even a tenth of the amount. So that compute's going to spread all over the place and profitability is going to go also all over the place. So
yeah.
I've got some of my friends are kind of taking bets, and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm going to go mine this because I think this is going to be the next big thing."
Right.
I'm like,
so there are still proof of work tokens to be
heaps,
mined.
Yeah, so, right. In fact, an interesting one, or I think is interesting, is that a lot of people are going to Ethereum Classic, which depending on your opinion. That could be considered the original Ethereum. Ethereum way back in the day had a big exploit called the DAO hack, what happened with that hack is it was so sort of catastrophic that they opted to actually hard fork the Ethereum chain and kind of give a lot of people their Ethereum back. And but the Ethereum Classic chain, they opted to not do that.
And that still continues to this day. That
still continues. And it's had, its fair share of problems over the years because it was a significantly smaller network. It was kind of an easy target for 51% attacks. So a 51% attack can be done by basically pointing more hash power at the network than everybody else combined. And then you can do double spend attacks. You can sort of dictate what happens.
So you own 51% of the network, effectively.
51% of the hash rate. So, but you could do that by like buying hash rate. You didn't have to build out your own farm. You could buy hash rate through like NiceHash or a few other services.
Yeah,
and point it at what you wanted to do. So, but now with Ethereum, as I said, going to be shedding all this hash power. It's going to go. Some of it's going to be switched off, but a lot of it will be moved on to other projects.
Moved on to other, yep. So my understanding, Ethereum will be switching to proof of stake. Now, that is where you stake, you put up already Ethereum that you currently own.
Correct.
In order to prove what are you proving? You're proving that you're a contributor to the network?
Yeah, so
contributor to the hash?
The network is secured by validators.
Validator, that's the term I was looking for, yeah.
And to be a validator, you need to have a whole lot of Ethereum. Right. And that's your stake, right? So if of all the validators out there, all of a sudden one of them is acting untoward, then they're putting their own Ethereum at risk.
At risk. Understood.
So it's keeping you secure by the punishment of you doing the wrong thing is significant.
Right. Okay. So not unlike, taking a mortgage out with fiat currency in a way, I guess you stake your financial future on that. Mm-hmm. And, you could always declare bankruptcy, I guess, but you're putting some sort of something of meaning into it to say that
you're putting your money where your mouth is.
You're putting your money where your mouth is. Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
And indeed, for people who were mining and getting like a bit of income from that, you will be able to stake your Ethereum into like staking pools, and you'll get a percentage, basically an annual % return for doing that as well.
So like an investment, yeah.
Yeah, that's not something that I've actually looked into too much on my own. You had to, like, in the sort of before today, you kind of had to lock up your Ethereum for like an unknown date. So I wasn't really keen on that.
Not desirable, yeah.
But anyway, it's interesting times. This has been on the cards for many years.
6 years or something, yeah.
Yeah. I think like 2017 was the original first date it was supposed to happen. So,
yeah. All right. Well, I'll be keeping my eye on that. In about 2 hours' time, we'll see what happens. I guess the YouTube will blow up with videos about it, and we'll know exactly what's going on.
Yep.
So just before we get on to the news items, I noted during the week that there will be a new region in Cape Town, in the south of Africa.
Nice. I think that'll be the first African region?
I believe so, yeah. Doesn't open until 2023.
That's just around the corner now. 2022 is, I can see the end in sight.
Is almost a memory. That's right. All right, let's get on with the news. So, Dave, looks like VMware have updated vSphere. Yeah,
they had a big conference at the tail end of August there. So, a lot of new updates. We got... I might just come through now. This is obviously not really a purely kind of Google topic, but as our listeners will know that we've been doing a lot with VMware engines, so we do keep across the sort of updates in vSphere, give us an idea of what be coming down the line as the VMware engine service gets updated as well. But there was a few things which really kind of stuck out to me in the new version of vSphere. The first one that really kind of piqued my interest is they're now supporting what are data processing units, or DPUs. So, I don't know, Banky, have you heard of smart NICs before?
I've heard of smart NICs, yes.
Yeah, so there are these smart NICs, and you can now get these commercially for your own data centers. There's NVIDIA has, I think it's got the Bluefield DPU, and it's basically a NIC with SoC on board. What's really cool with these is that vSphere now, if you've got a bunch of ESXi hosts that do have these smart NICs on board, or these DPUs, it's able to deploy I guess kind of a cut down version of ESX direct onto the smart NIC itself. So you're going to have a host that has ESX running on it, that has a smart NIC inside, which also has a version of ESX on it, and it will load onto that kind of little dedicated SoC all of like the NSX network services. So offloads that from the x86 CPU that's actually running your workloads, shifts all the networking stuff down into the DPU itself.
Right. In much the same way a graphics processor offloads all the graphics calculations.
Yeah, correct. But I guess because the way like sort of NSX works, it has various appliances and things as well. It's, being able to actually shift those workloads straight into there, like distributed firewall and a few other things. I just think that's really cool.
So it's not coming all the way into the CPU and then all the way back out.
No.
That can all just happen in the NIC.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And so as part of it, it also, if you're like updating the host, it will update the version of ESX that's in the smart NIC, like in lockstep, to keep them compliant. So I thought that's very cool.
Right.
From my understanding, the hyperscalers actually use smart NICs in like their kind of. I'm not actually sure if Google does it in Compute Engine, but I think that both Azure and Amazon do that with their like sort of like EC2 services.
Yep.
But they have their own particular versions of these.
I can remember back in my day, we had SSL offloader cards. So it was a math coprocessor that you would slot into a Sun system, and then there was some drivers to load, and that would be the SSL library, and it was a piece of ASIC hardware that would do the encryption and decryption for you if you had a lot of traffic going through. So
same sort of thing.
Same sort of thing.
On the gamer side, I remember PhysX cards.
PhysX cards, yeah. That's all built into NVIDIA GPUs now, right? Yeah. Same idea. Yeah. Exactly
that. So anyway, that's pretty funky, and that's in vSphere 8 now, which is very cool. Which is the, what do they call it? The Distributed Services Engine, I think. It's very fancy. Other cool things. We can skip over all the Tanzu stuff because, if we're using VMware engine, we might as well use GKE because it's right there, right?
Yeah.
But they have, I'm being facetious a little bit there, but they have done a lot of updates to Tanzu. If you are using that on-prem, then you definitely should check it out. There's a couple of nice things from a host lifecycle management side of things. So you can stage patches on multiple hosts at once. There's now if you're updating your clusters, the ability to nominate like how many hosts would be updated at a time. The way it used to be, it was always just one. So you would, it would put a host into maintenance mode, it would patch that host, it would get finished, it would come up, and then it would roll its way through your cluster. But, if you've got a significantly large cluster, then that remediation time might take a while. So there is now actually an option where you can nominate and say, like, actually you can do 2 or 3 at a time, obviously depending on how much capacity you've got in your cluster. And I don't know how, this would be worth thinking about, how that would work with vSAN. Because when you put a vSAN host into maintenance mode, it evacuates all the data. So that'd be interesting. Anyway, that's cool. There's also some pretty cool stuff with if you have ever had to restore your vCenter from a backup. So some of the cluster state is now actually going to be distributed amongst all the hosts. So if you restore it from a backup, it will then get some updated state since the last backup by just querying a distributed key value store that's across all the ESX hosts.
Ah, that's nice. So you can restore any host and you've got you should have your state available to you.
Yeah, well, it's more if you bring vCenter back itself.
Right.
I suppose this might help prevent, if it's been a while since your last backup and you bring it up and a lot of changes have happened.
Yeah.
Where it might get a little bit confused with what's the state of the clusters. There's a few other interesting things. If you've got like AI or ML hardware accelerators, you can create some device groups, and there's some things that sort of help make them a little bit more manageable. There's a new version of VM hardware, which shouldn't really surprise anyone. So we're up to version 20 now. Which, I know that there's certainly plenty of companies out there that still have VMs with like VM hardware version 4. So think about updating, people. Get some extra features. There's a cool thing if you happen to deploy Windows 11 on your virtual machines. I suppose more if you're probably using a like Horizon virtual desktops. Because you may know that Windows 11 does require you to have a TPM. And
yes. I've discovered this in my most recent desktop upgrade.
Yes. So you have to have a TPM. It certainly, I know it stopped me from updating a couple of my older laptops because their ones are not compliant. But if you have a virtual TPM and then you clone the server, you'd be cloning the TPM, which would clone the secrets. So now there's a new feature in there where when you clone a Windows 11 machine, you can determine whether or not the TPM should be copied or replaced, and it can give you a new one.
Nice, yeah.
Which is cool. There's also, and this is really funky, there's a thing for really tweaking the performance of your latency sensitive workloads. Now, you may be aware, you may not, but if you're having CPU bottlenecking problems with a VM, some people's initial instinct is, I'll just throw more cores at it. Right? Oh, I've got 8 cores currently, I'll give it 16. That doesn't always help. Sometimes it can really detriment, especially if your hosts are fairly loaded up with other workloads.
Might be a single-threaded app.
Might also be if you've got say you've got 8 cores, it has to wait for all 8 cores to be available so it can schedule that workload. So you can actually degrade performance because it has to wait for more cores to free up.
Yeah.
And you can also run into issues with like it not being NUMA aware. Now there's also in vSphere 8 there is improvements there as well. But yeah, so you can actually tweak some of the settings now for the VMs, and you can say like, all right, this server has like a really high latency sensitivity. And you can configure that, and as long as you have the CPU reservation to 100%, it will actually keep the VM kind of allocated to a core and to a hyperthread as well. So it really gets dedicated access in there. So it'd be interesting to benchmark that and see, like, if you did do, my thing about saying like 16 cores on say like an 8-core CPU with hyperthreading, and see what that performance improvement is like.
Does it give it exclusivity to that core, or is it more sort of a priority scheduling thing?
It makes it exclusive.
Wow. Okay. And you can oversubscribe like that?
I don't know if you'd be able to oversubscribe it.
Right.
I'd have to tweak it.
That's syntax error for me. Like, how would you?
Yeah, if you're allocating and say like, this has to have these hyperthreads, I don't think you'd be able to oversubscribe that.
No, that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. And there's also you can tweak the NUMA configuration as well now. So you can say like, yep, I've got this server has 2 sockets, 2 cores per socket, 2 NUMA nodes, and help make things a bit more aware. So that's really some nice little enhancements that are in there now, which is great.
Do we know when we're going to see this in GCVE?
I'd expect it to be a while off. From what I've seen, so currently, I think in VMware Engine, we're running vSphere 7 Update 2. I would suggest that Update 3 isn't going to be too far off because it's been out for a while. I would expect to not really see vSphere 8 probably for at least 6 to 12 months. But there was a couple of updates for VMware Engine. It's good because there's some public articles that are on the VMware site that sort of talks about a few roadmap items. But one of them, which is of keen interest for me, is that the VMware Engine APIs and command line stuff is in public preview. So,
oh yeah,
certainly
we've been hanging out for that.
Yeah, that's at the moment, VMware Engine is heavily ClickOps driven. Obviously, knowing Google, that is not how it was ever destined to be. But it's great seeing the command line stuff coming through. It's something that I've been playing around with recently. So looking to do a lot more of that. There's also some additional zones which have come in the last 6 months for VMware Engine. Apparently, there are actually expected to be additional regions coming online in 2023 in Asia, Europe, and South America. Whether or not that'll be like single zones or multiple zone regions.
Yep, and we're going to get an additional zone here in Sydney, Australia Southeast 1B as well.
Yes, yeah. Lots of updates in the VMware space.
Yeah, that's a big area where Google does seem to have a lot of focus at the moment. I don't know. I read a few articles during the week about the Broadcom takeover of VMware. I don't think it's going as smoothly as they planned.
There's a lot of change.
There's a lot of change, but hopefully that doesn't impact too much on some of these technical advancements that we're seeing here.
No,
but I think we may. So the only reason I mention is that I think we may see a bit of a brain drain from VMware, possibly going into Google. I mean, that'd be nice. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of ex-VMware people in there currently.
That's right. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thanks for that, Dave. Heaps of cool stuff there. We might just move on. And speaking of companies in trouble, Google. Oh boy, this one's got to hurt.
Yeah.
Google loses appeal over illegal Android app bundling. EU reduces the fine, mind you.
Well, that's good. It's good news. It's a good news thing.
Reduced to 4.1 billion euros.
But it's reduced. It could have been
reduced.
more.
So the EU has upheld a 2018 antitrust charge against Google, confirming that the company imposed unlawful restrictions on Android phone manufacturers in order to promote its search engine on mobile devices. This is an article on The Verge, came out 14th of September. You brought this to my attention, Dave. What?
Yeah, it was interesting that it was reduced from 4.3 down to 4.1, and I suppose in the last 4 years there's been a lot of inflation, so maybe it's a bigger win.
Well, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it was reduced from 4.3 billion to 4.1 billion because the judge that was overseeing it decided that entering into a revenue sharing scheme was not a problem. Wasn't no illegalities about that.
Right.
So they removed that part of the fine. But
$200 million removal. €2 million, sorry.
So let's just dive into this a bit. The origin of the 2018 charge against Google found that the company abused its market dominance by forcing Android phone makers to restrict how they sold their devices. Manufacturers had to agree not to sell phones using variant versions of Android, in other words, forks, right? Not approved by Google, and to pre-install Google Search and Chrome apps alongside the company's App Store. I mean, wonder what other company did this with laptops back in the 90s, you know? Sounds very familiar to something else.
Some sort of macro saft.
Google also paid phone makers and mobile operators to exclusively install Google Search on devices as part of the revenue sharing scheme.
So, play devil's advocate a little bit here, and I do understand where they're coming from, and they don't like the EU, especially doesn't like any company sort of strong arming, and that was the original Internet Explorer Windows issue. But do you remember how much of a Wild West Android was a decade ago?
Oh, anyone was putting it on anything.
And you got all sorts of like really crummy versions and forks, and it was like, here's like, you know, my dodgy telco version of Android, and we only give it like 2 months worth of patches, and
yeah.
So like,
so that idea feeds into the next thing here. Google's legal response focused on a number of arguments, including that the commissioner incorrectly judged that the company to be dominant in the mobile market because iOS exists, and that his actions were necessary to stop the Android ecosystem fragmenting into many incompatible operating systems. To which the commissioner replies, incompatible or not, fostering rival mobile OSs is exactly the desired outcome of a competitive market.
Yeah.
But it's a pain in the neck. It's a complete pain in the neck, right?
Yeah. I mean, we had Windows Phone.
We had Windows. Don't mention it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can't believe we're going to say this, but look at the Linux ecosystem, right?
Yep.
You have many Linux distributions. They're all different. You've got different desktops. You've got different environments, but somehow they're still all compatible.
Compatible-ish.
Yeah, up to a point, right? Up to a point. I mean, you could argue that Android's Linux anyway. It is a Linux kernel, but so it fragments. God, I don't know. I don't know which way is better. Do we want a fragmented market where we have the choice, or do we want everything to be focused in one place and make that one thing as good as it can be?
Yeah.
It's a tough one to answer.
Like, I mean, I really like now. Okay, mind you, I suppose I've been using Pixel phones now for the last few years, and I had Nexus phones before that. Like the times when I had other brands of phones, things kind of got a little bit annoying, where patches would fall behind and stuff like that. Like that was like my biggest bugbear.
And they're always putting a skin on them anyway, right?
Yeah.
So they sort of, your interaction with it via the skin is a different experience when you go from one phone to the other.
Yeah. And then I suppose though you also then get that thing where you have like you have an Android phone and it has like Gmail and a whole bunch of other, obviously Google apps on there, but then you would have like the Samsung version of those apps, and you start getting a bit of sprawl in there.
Yep. And you got the bloatware installed on there as well. Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, the EU doesn't like it. They think it's anti-competitive. They want it to be as open as possible. Now, Google does have one more appeal. So that decision came from the EU's second highest court, the General Court, meaning that Google can appeal this decision yet again with the bloc's highest country, the Court of Justice. But they've got to wait 2 months and 10 days before they can make that appeal. So that's, even if that court would hear it, I suppose they would. It's a pretty big fine. Talking big bickies.
I think it would be worth their time.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll keep it. I mean, that's probably going to be a long time before we actually get the result. They'll drag it out for as long as they can. But yeah, geez, that's got to hurt. 4.1 billion euros. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, yeah. Let's just move away from that a little bit. Let's look at on that cheery note. Yeah, let's look at some areas where Google has spent some money that's been worthwhile. They've got a couple of new features. And this is around storage. When I first looked at this, it was the backup stuff that drew my attention, but you liked the hyperdisk stuff. So
yeah, I mean, also I just love that it's called hyperdisk.
Hyperdisk. We're evolving storage in the cloud to meet your challenging needs. Today's digital customer event, a spotlight on storage. We announced a number of storage innovations. Here are a few that highlights our commitment to you. Right. Advancing our enterprise readiness, we announced Google Cloud Hyperdisk, the next generation of persistent disk, bringing the ability to easily and dynamically tune the performance of your block storage to your workload. With Hyperdisk, you can provision IOPS and throughput independently for applications and adapt to the changing application performance needs over time.
Which is great. I actually wonder then if you could schedule like changing your IOPS. Like for example, maybe I've got a batch job that runs on a Friday night and I need as much IOPS as possible, but as soon as that's done, archive.
You tune it back down. Yeah, right. Yeah. And I wonder if they're making any change to the IOPS regionally, because at the moment you only get high IOPS zonally.
Yep.
I don't think this article dives into it that much, but that'd be nice if you could. I mean, obviously, there will be restrictions when you're doing it regionally, right? Because you've got inter-region, inter-zonal connections. But that'd be nice to be able to tune that as well. But yeah, that'd be a perfect use case, right? So you do your batch job, you tune it up, you bring it back down.
Yep.
Overnight. Yep.
So definitely keeping an eye out for that. It would be already imagining use cases for Hyperdisk.
Yeah. Or what about linking the IOPS to your database throughput, right? So the more queries that occur to your database, you have a metric link there that tunes your IOPS up.
Oh, right. So if you're like,
as your queries go up,
we're
and then you tune
danger
it down.
of breaching our SLO.
Yeah.
So
put your IOPS back up on your
I like that.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool with Hyperdisk. We also launched File Store Enterprise Multi-Share for Google Kubernetes Engine. Enables administrators to seamlessly create a file store instance and carve out portions of the storage to be used simultaneously across one or thousands of GKE clusters. Nice. And it gives you 99.99% regional storage availability. And they can combine that with backup for GKE. Now, backup was another cool thing. We'll get on the back in a minute, but they've brought in another storage class, and we both like this called cloud storage storage class called Auto Class. What's Auto Class do for us, Dave?
Right, so it will automatically move objects based on their last access time by policy. So
if only I could have given that answer in the PCA test, I wouldn't have to know this cold line nearline archive
we're
business.
doing this, or which one's the most appropriate, how many times, and then you have to do the math, like work out like how often can they recover it. No,
90 days versus 6 weeks.
Okay, that one's gonna have to go on nearline, and but no, Auto Class, and it will move things for you, and it can bring it back up to warmer storage if it makes sense as well. It's
and it does it based on the last access time. That's awesome.
So no, I think that's just as a game changer having that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's just put everything in Auto Class now, right? Almost. And it'll just cycle it down. Yeah. And then the last sort of thing that they announced was Google Cloud Backup and DR.
Yes. Now this would be an evolution of Actifio Go, I believe.
Right, because that's what I was trying to place it. Like, well, how does it fit into that?
Yeah, so they've been working on integrating Actifio Go for a while. It was always planned to come in as a real first class citizen. And I think this is now crossing. It's getting the stack driver treatment.
Anyway, Google Cloud Backup and DR, enabling centralized backup management directly from the Google Cloud console. It gives you a nice single pane of glass for all your backup jobs, and it gives you a feature called incremental forever. So you do your initial backup, and then from that point on, you're only sending the deltas. Fantastic if you're going on-prem. You want to back up because it works with on-prem as well. Imagine it's just an agent, or it might work with the existing Google agent. You just do your initial backup and just dribble the deltas through.
Yep, deltas forever.
I might even think of backing up our machines here at home. Push them up there because I've been thinking about that.
Yep.
Integrates with, as we said, operations, just as appears in another thing there. And I'll link in the show notes to the article here. You get a nice dashboard and you can see the status of your backups, when the next ones are going to run, any errors or warnings that have occurred, the number of numbers, it gives you all the metrics and everything. Yeah, really looking forward to playing with this. And I can tell you the amount of times and hours I've spent with backups, tape backups, TARs, pushing this backup to there, moving that backup to everywhere, and they're all different. And you've got to document everything, how that's going to work and how you're going to restore it. Well, to have a single thing that just does it all for you and everyone knows how it works is fantastic.
Yeah, and it's something that comes up all the time with, when we're doing cloud migrations, right? You're getting off-prem, you go, okay, well, we can move the compute here. Oh, wait, we've also got to deal with our backups. We've got all these backup appliances on-prem. What are we going to do? We need a solution for this now.
No more. Just use this. Yep.
Yeah, I was trying to see where it's available, and currently on the backup and DR service site, it says coming late September 2022. So, being that we're only in mid-September, I think we've got another week or two.
Another week or two before we actually see it. Yeah. All right. Definitely be playing with that, though.
For sure.
All right, let's move on. The Australian government, in their infinite wisdom, wants to mess with data localization in the cloud. And all the hyperscalers and Meta are opposing this. AWS, Microsoft, Google Cloud, Meta all opposed data localization for Australia. This is an article on IT News. I'll link in the show notes. But the idea is around data sovereignty, and they are proposing. I honestly don't know where we're at in terms of the proposition that personally identified information not be shared across borders and be kept within Australia. Which,
when, like, at first glance, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine.
But that's a great idea at first glance.
Yeah, but then you think about it.
You just think a little bit about it.
You think about it.
And you go, well, that's not such a great idea. And it actually could potentially cause more restrictions and more problems and be less secure.
Yeah.
In the long run.
Yep.
Right? So Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google Cloud, and Meta are among the top cloud providers and data repositories to warn the federal government against initiating data localization requirements. Many countries have data localization laws in place, while others are adopting legislation, often to stop insecure transfer of personally identified information across borders.
Now, I can get on board with that line, that specific line of stopping insecure transfer of personal information. I'm okay with that. But I don't think saying, like, well, the data has to live here, because we're in a global world. You build out anything on any of the cloud providers, you might need services that aren't regional in nature. They might be a global service.
Yeah, so the data stored in a data center, in a Google data center, for instance, it doesn't matter who we're talking about here, but those data centers are effectively cookie cutter, right? There might be some services available, newer services that are available in probably in the US before they're available here, but effectively they're the same thing. It's got the same security protocols. They're using the same encryption algorithms. They're the security guys are looking after it. They know that stuff way more than anyone else, any government or any, 2-bit, organization would know.
Some tin pot little MSP got
that's right.
Their first level support guy is also their security engineer.
Yeah, nah. Right. So you put your data in that data center, doesn't matter where it is. It ain't going anywhere. Right? That's the idea. It really doesn't matter. Now, if you think about it a little bit further, for us here in Australia, what if we were in a situation where some new security feature had been launched? It was only available in the US, not available in Australia. All our data was in Australia because of some draconian law. And then that data was breached because we weren't able to put it in the more highly secure environment.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a real possibility.
Yep. You're holding us back from being able to do these things because would it settle into being just like it's where the data goes at rest, or it can't even transit through a global service? And there's a good note in here actually, where I think it's Microsoft sort of came back in their response saying that the locality of where the data is stored, while it is a reasonable architectural decision, like you're thinking about where should the data be stored in relation to your customers for latency, but it's not a security control. Right? Just what tin it's physically sitting on doesn't make it any more or less secure.
Correct. Well, you may put the data in a certain region, as you say, because it's because of latency or because of some other architectural requirement, like dedicated link or something like that, dedicated interconnect. But yeah, it makes zero difference on in terms of the security.
Yeah, it's if you've got your data sitting in I don't know, Spanner, for example, right? All my data, Spanner instances, it's obviously that's being stored in tin somewhere in the world. If someone goes and rips a disk out of a box that's got that, it's encrypted at rest, it's of no use to anyone.
Yeah, that's right, and it's fragmented across multiple disks, so it's not going to be complete data anyway, and it's fragmented across multiple sites. It really concerns me that we have lawmakers that are even proposing things like this. It's clear that they don't understand. Yeah, so interesting article, and I was pulling my hair out and bashing my head against the wall reading it, going, no, don't do this. Why? It sums it up well. This is an area that is largely still misunderstood in the market, and misconceptions regarding threats such as insider threat or law enforcement access requests still exist. So, this is modernization, right? We don't store data in unencrypted text files on a single disk. That's not how it works anymore.
Yeah, no. I mean, there'll be plenty of that all over the place. But the hyperscalers aren't doing it.
No, hyperscaler, we hope no, they aren't doing it. So someone needs to be taken and given a good explanation of this. And I think Microsoft has actually put their hand up. Yeah, in this article it says Microsoft offered to brief Australian government officials on the matter. And of course, while they're there, they'll probably say something along the lines of, if you use Azure, then... Anyway, I'll link that in the show notes. Let's hope we don't end up going down that path. Oh, and the other good point they point out as well is, this concept of keeping data onshore is quite often used in personal surveillance. Countries like India, Vietnam, Turkey, and China, they will do it with the intention of facilitating surveillance on their citizens. Now, I like to think Australia, we're a free society. That's not going to come to that, and that's not what the intention is. But it could be a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's not a good approach.
No, let's hope it doesn't come to that. No. All right, we'll keep an eye on that and keep you across it. All right, let's move on. Talking about security, we've got a couple of security items here. Mandiant, this is big news as well.
Did it happen?
I mean, there's so many big news items. We've only got one top of the show, right? You can only put one item at the top of the show. Mandiant has happened. Google now officially owns Mandiant. Google completed its acquisition of Mandiant, bringing a major name in cybersecurity under the tech giant ever-growing umbrella. There was a court case. I think it was a court case, and they had to prove, it had to be signed off and ratified, and it's been done. 5.4 billion. There's some big numbers today on today's show. $1 billion acquisition announced in March was completed on Monday.
It's
according to a Google press release.
It's the same as just a fine, right?
That's right. Just a cool 5 billion. Yes.
Yeah, we can pay a fine, or we can buy Mandiant.
Buy Mandiant. Yeah, Mandiant will keep its own brand while operating under the Google Cloud branch of its new parent company. Of course, Mandiant was best known for uncovering the SolarWinds hack a few years ago now. Microsoft has also rumored they were considering it. I think we mentioned at the time when we talked about this, but they got beat to the punch by Google. And now it's all official.
It'd be great seeing more of the Mandiant expertise be rolled into the Google service offering. Like, they're doing such a huge play in security now. We went through like Chronicle last fortnight, and this is only going to help strengthen that. Yeah.
In a blog post, Google Cloud CEO Thomas Kurian highlighted Mandiant's threat intelligence expertise and said that Google intends to combine that with its enormous data processing and machine learning capabilities to protect customer from cyber threats. Ooh, I'm actually sort of quietly excited about this to see what's going to come out. I mean, the AI and the auto processing of threat detection. I mean, it could be fantastic, really.
Yeah. Yep. And making that available for everyone.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on that. I imagine in the next 12 months or so, we'll start to see a bunch of new security features come through.
Yeah, I mean, we've been tracking that acquisition for probably 6 months now.
That's right.
So it's great to see that kind of get across the line.
And in other security news, there's yet another Chrome ZeroDay. It's kind of getting a bit boring, isn't it?
It's going to be a standing topic in our thing. It was right at the top of the show. Just update your Chrome. All right. Stop. Pause the podcast. Update your Chrome. Come back. Off we go.
Actually, I was on a Google Meet today and someone shared the screen and I saw that they needed to update their Chrome. I nearly said something. I probably should have.
Mine's got the little yellow light, so I after this, I think I will do it.
Yeah, update. Google has released a security update for Chrome browser. This was on the 5th of September. So if you've got that update light there, you better do it because this is a serious one. Across all platforms, Mac, Linux, and Windows, a new ZeroDay that is being actively exploited. The release CVE 2022-307 relating to insufficient data validation in Mojo, a collection of runtime libraries used in Chromium, which powers much of the code behind Google Chrome. So it sounds like it's deeply rooted. I didn't go in and look at the details of the CVE, but all we're saying is just putting it out there to everyone. Make sure you've got that update because it sounds like it's pretty deep. Google actually hasn't provided exact details around what it is. They just push the fix out.
Yeah, get it updated. It's a general rule.
That's it.
Keep an eye
general rule, get it updated. And look, we'll finish on the last fun one here. What's the go with NFTs? What's the go? Google Cloud Neural Networks creates 10,000 works of art using only the Bored Ape Yacht Club NFTs.
Yeah, and then they made their own NFTs.
Then they made their own NFT. So they apparently put in something like 10,000 pictures of apes into an AI, and then they used a bunch of other images and then created
kind of like oil painting looking versions.
Like oil paintings, yeah. And a collection of 10,000 portraits of painterly apes took several machines' weeks of processing powers to compute. And then they started selling them. They sold 400, and then they knew they got a bit of traction, and then they made it open slather to the rest of the public and sold the other 10,000 in minutes. Now, I just don't get it. NFTs. Anyway, you go to the site. It's this 10,000 artsy monkey collection. And I'll put the link to the article in the session. Artsy monkey, right? I mean, some of the images are very good. Right?
Yeah, but why do I need to own it? I can.
You get the 4K. You get the 4K version and print it out when you own it. So So now, look, if I go here, check this out. Price highest to low. Now they're selling these in Ethereum, right? The highest is 69,420 Ethereum.
Yes, 69,420. Right.
69,420. Right. That currently equates to $11 million.
No, 111 million.
111, sorry. Oh, boy, just actual order of magnitude there. $111 million. Now, come on. I mean, that's not even one of the good ones, I don't think.
Has it got history on, like, sold ones? Because obviously, like, someone putting up with an asking price of that, like...
Yeah. Recently sold. Here we go. Recently sold. Right, so they're selling for a fraction.
Yeah.
Right. This one here, for instance, which I don't know what that looks like. Looks like a dragon with a mustick hanging out of its mouth. 0.075.
Yeah, click on that. Get that conversion into Aussie
click on
dollars.
that. 120.
Yeah.
I think that'd be US. That'd be US dollars.
Oh, okay, fine. But still, a fool and their money, right?
Yeah, that's it. And we can see who bought and sold it. So, I mean, it just goes to show if if we'd thought of this, Dave, we could be selling 10,000 monkey artworks now and making some real Ethereum. And we'd have some to stake. Yeah, we could make more out of it.
Or we could run a validation node.
That's right.
Anyway,
more fun little project. Yeah. Holders have continued to trade the art pieces on NFT marketplace OpenSea ever since, with over 200 Ethereum of sales volume generated in secondary sales alone.
Yeah, right.
So if you had, so they are trading, boasting a 4K resolution print-ready version available only to owners. The collection has quickly evolved to be much more than just fine art. All right, well, we'll just finish on that fun one there. I mean, NFTs, I don't think I'll ever understand them. I'm a boomer.
Yeah, it's not a craze I got into.
No, all right, we'll leave it there. Look, go on to iTunes, write us a review. That will really help the show. And, of course, you can contact the show, gcplife@casna.com.au. We've got the Twitter there, @gcplife. There's a website, just Google that. And, of course, today's sponsor is Casna. At Casna, we make your Google Cloud solutions possible. It's been a bumper show. I think we've talked, that's well over an hour now. And look, it's been fun today. Dave, you got anything else?
No, I think I'm all done. I think I need a cup of tea, and I'm going to wind down to the afternoon.
That's it. All right. Well, that's about it for us for 2 weeks. We will catch you later. Bye.
Catch you. Bye.
we take a look at what's new in we take